I should have known something was wrong when I saw Mark's expression during the wedding toast. My brother had that same look he wore in high school before pulling one of his infamous pranks. A mix of mischief and barely contained satisfaction. And now, he announced, tapping his champagne glass, a special presentation for my dear sister Emma and her new husband. The crowd of 200 guests turned their attention to the large screen we'd set up for wedding photos. My name is Emma Chen, and at 29, I was celebrating what should have been the happiest day of my life. Instead, it became the day my family's darkest secret came crashing down around us. Mark clicked his remote, and grainy footage filled the screen. I found this while cleaning out Dad's old storage unit, he said, his voice carrying an edge I'd never heard before. Thought everyone should see it. The timestamp read June 15, 1993, 3 months before my birth. The video showed our parents' old living room, where my mother sat crying while my father paced back and forth. Turn it off, my mother suddenly commanded, her voice sharp with panic. But Mark ignored her. You can't keep this from him forever, Margaret, my father's voice crackled through the speakers. He has a right to know about his daughter. The room fell silent. My husband James grabbed my hand as we watched my mother shake her head frantically on screen. No one can ever know, Richard. We agreed. Emma is ours. That's all that matters. The champagne glass slipped from my father's trembling fingers, shattering on the floor. Next to me, my mother's face had drained of all color. I felt the world spinning. Emma is ours. What did that mean? My mother had always told me I was born in Seattle General Hospital. She had my birth certificate, photos of her pregnancy. The video continued mercilessly. What about Thomas? My father demanded. He's her father. He deserves. Enough. My mother's scream cut through the reception hall. She lunged for the control panel, but Mark blocked her path. Why? He asked, his voice cold. Afraid everyone will learn how you stole Emma from her real father. The words hit me like physical blows. Stolen. Real father. The room started to blur as guests began whispering, phones recording every moment of my family's implosion. I did what I had to do, my mother whispered, but in the silent hall, everyone heard her. Thomas was going to take her away. I couldn't let that happen. My father stood up, his face ashen. Margaret, what did you do? She turned to him pleading. I told you she was ours. You promised never to question it. Because you told me her mother died in childbirth, he shouted. You said Thomas gave her up willingly. The truth crashed over me in waves. Not only was I not their biological daughter, my mother had actively taken me from my real father, a man named Thomas who had wanted me, who had been denied the chance to raise his own child. Get out, I said, my voice shaking. All of you, get out. James stood up, trying to take control of the situation. Everyone, please, let's give the family some privacy. Privacy? Mark laughed bitterly. That's rich. Mom's been keeping secrets for 30 years. I think we're past privacy. Security began ushering guests toward the exits, many still filming on their phones. My perfect wedding had transformed into a viral scandal in minutes. Emma, sweetheart. My mother reached for me, but I jerked away. Don't touch me, I hissed. Don't you dare touch me. My father hadn't moved, still staring at my mother like he was seeing a stranger. All these years, he whispered. Every time I asked about her birth mother, about Thomas, you lied to my face. I did it for us, she insisted, for our family. What family? I asked, my voice breaking. Everything I thought I knew about myself is a lie. Who am I, really? Who is Thomas? What happened to my birth mother? Mark stepped forward, holding up a manila envelope. I found more than just the video, Emma. There are letters, documents. Thomas McCarthy is your biological father. He's been looking for you for 30 years. The name hit me like a physical blow. Thomas McCarthy. Somewhere out there, I had a father who had never stopped searching for me. He's alive? My mother's voice was barely a whisper. But how? The restraining order. Expired 15 years ago, Mark finished. He's been trying to contact Emma ever since. All those letters you intercepted, the calls you blocked. Did you really think you could hide this forever? I looked at my brother, understanding dawning. You've known. How long have you known? 6 months, he admitted. Since I found the storage unit. I wanted to tell you right away, but I knew Mom would try to spin it, make excuses. I needed everyone to see the truth. By ruining my wedding, I asked, tears streaming down my face. By setting you free, he corrected. Thomas deserves to know his daughter, and you deserve to know your real father. The days following my wedding were a blur of canceled honeymoon plans, unanswered calls from well-wishers, and the constant ping of social media notifications as clips of Mark's revelation went viral. James suggested we get away for a while, but I couldn't leave. Not until I had answers. Mark brought over the manila envelope he'd found in a storage unit. We spread its contents across my dining room table, yellowed letters, court documents, and photographs I'd never seen before. "This is him," Mark said softly, sliding a photo toward me. "Thomas McCarthy." I stared at the image, searching for pieces of myself in this stranger's face. He had my eyes, I realized with a start. The same unusual gray-green color that had always made me stand out in family photos. In the picture, he was holding a baby, me, and smiling like he held the whole world in his arms. "The letters start from 1993, Mark explained, handling the papers carefully. "He wrote to Mom every month for 5 years. Then the tone changes. He gets desperate, angry. That's when he tried to fight legally." I picked up one of the letters, dated December 1998. "Margaret, please, she's my daughter. I've respected your wishes, stayed away as you demanded, but she deserves to know the truth. Sarah would have wanted her to know." "Sarah," I whispered, "my birth mother." Mark nodded grimly. "Sarah Mitchell. She and Thomas weren't married, but they were engaged. According to these documents, she died shortly after giving birth to you, complications from preeclampsia. But how did Mom end up with me? If Thomas was there, if he wanted me." "That's where it gets complicated," Mark said, pulling out a stack of legal papers. "Mom was Sarah's nurse at the hospital. When Sarah died, Thomas was devastated. Mom offered to help with the baby, you, while he grieved. She used her position at the hospital to gain his trust." My hands shook as I read through the court transcripts. My mother, Margaret Wilson, RN, had been investigated for falsifying hospital records. She'd somehow managed to get my birth certificate issued with her name as the mother, using her connections in hospital administration. By the time Thomas realized what was happening, Mark continued, Mom and Dad had moved us to Seattle. She filed a restraining order against Thomas, claiming he was mentally unstable and threatening her family. The courts believed her. She was a respected nurse after all. "Dad really didn't know?" I asked, though I'd seen the truth in his face at the wedding. "Mom told him she'd adopted you legally, that Thomas had signed away his rights. They never saw these papers. She kept everything hidden, even from him." My phone buzzed, another call from my mother. I'd ignored dozens already, but this time I picked up. "Emma, please," she begged. "Let me explain." "Explain what?" I asked coldly. "How you stole me from my grieving father. How you lied to everyone for 30 years? "I loved you from the moment I saw you," she said, her voice breaking. "Thomas was a mess after Sarah died. He couldn't even look at you without breaking down. I knew I could give you a better life. That wasn't your decision to make. You don't understand. Sarah was my patient. I promised her I'd look after you if anything happened. Thomas, he wasn't fit to be a father then. So you decided to become my mother instead, to fake documents and lie to your own husband?" "I did it because I loved you," she insisted. "No," I said firmly. "You did it because you wanted a baby and didn't care who you hurt to get one. Does Thomas even know I'm alive? After all these years, does he think I'm dead too?" The silence on the other end was damning. "He's in Portland now," Mark said after I hung up. "I found him on LinkedIn. He's a high school English teacher. Portland, just 3 hours away. All this time, my real father had been so close." "There's something else," Mark added hesitantly. "He got married about 20 years ago. You have 2 half-siblings, a brother and a sister." I sat down hard, overwhelmed. Not only did I have a father, but siblings too, a whole other family I'd never known existed. "Why did you wait?" I finally asked Mark. "Why reveal everything at my wedding?" He was quiet for a moment. "I found the storage unit in January. At first, I was just going to tell you privately. But then I overheard Mom on the phone, talking about selling the unit and destroying everything inside. She knew I'd been there. She was going to erase it all, just like she'd erased Thomas from your life. I couldn't let that happen." "So you chose my wedding day?" "I chose the one day she couldn't stop me, couldn't spin the story her way. The one day everyone would have to face the truth." I looked down at the photo of Thomas again, at the love shining in his eyes as he held his baby daughter. My mother had stolen that love, that future, from both of us. I want to meet him, I said firmly. Mark nodded, pulling out his phone. I thought you might. I already found his email address. My hands trembled as I began to type. Dear Mr. McCarthy, my name is Emma Wilson, but I believe you knew me as Emma McCarthy. The coffee shop in Portland was quiet for a Sunday afternoon. I sat by the window, my heart pounding as I watched every person walk by. James squeezed my hand reassuringly, while Mark sat across from us, checking his phone. He's here, Mark said suddenly, looking toward the door. I turned and saw him, Thomas McCarthy, my biological father, standing in the doorway. He was older than in the photos, his hair now gray at the temples, but those eyes, my eyes, scanned the room until they found mine. For a moment, neither of us moved. 30 years of separation, of lies and loss, hung between us like a physical thing. Then he took a step forward and I found myself standing. Emma, he breathed, his voice breaking on my name. You look just like your mother. I hadn't expected those words to hit me so hard. All my life, people had said I didn't look like Margaret, and now I knew why. I looked like Sarah, the mother I'd never known. Would you like to sit? I managed to say, gesturing to our table. Thomas nodded, lowering himself into the chair. His hands shook slightly as he placed a worn leather briefcase on the table. I brought some things, he said, opening it. Photos of Sarah, of you as a baby, if you'd like to see them. Please, I whispered. He pulled out an album, and for the next hour, he shared pieces of my history I'd never known. Sarah had been an artist, he told me, showing me pictures of her paintings. That's where my creativity came from, not from Margaret's side of the family as I'd always believed. She was so excited about you, Thomas said, his voice thick with emotion. She painted your nursery herself, clouds and stars, because she said you'd be her little dreamer. What happened? I asked, though Mark had already told me. I needed to hear it from him. Thomas's face darkened. The pregnancy was difficult. Sarah developed preeclampsia in her 3rd trimester. The doctors tried everything, but he swallowed hard. She held you once, named you Emma after her grandmother, and then she was gone. And then Margaret took me. He nodded, anger flashing in his eyes. She seemed so kind at first, offering to help while I arranged the funeral. I was a mess, barely functioning. She said she'd handle the paperwork, make sure everything was properly registered. By the time I realized what she'd done, she disappeared with me. I searched everywhere, he said, pulling out newspaper clippings. Hired private investigators, filed police reports. But she planned it all so carefully. The false birth certificate, the restraining order. By the time I found you in Seattle, the courts believed I was just an obsessed stranger harassing an innocent family. I thought about my mother, Margaret, and all her careful preparations. The photo album she'd crafted, showing her supposedly pregnant, the stories she told about my birth. How many people had helped her maintain this lie? I never stopped looking, Thomas continued. Even after the restraining order, I kept tabs on you from afar. I saw your graduation announcement in the Seattle Times, your engagement notice. I knew you were loved, successful, but it killed me not to be part of your life. Tell me about your family now, I said, needing to shift away from the pain of the past. His face brightened. Hannah is 22, studying medicine at UCLA. Michael's 19, just started at Oregon State. And Kate, my wife, she knows all about you. She's helped me keep searching all these years. Would they want to meet me? They're actually here in Portland, he admitted. At our house. They wanted to give us space for this first meeting, but they're hoping you might come for dinner. All of you, he added, looking at James and Mark. I glanced at James, who nodded encouragingly. I'd like that. As we stood to leave, Thomas hesitated. Emma, there's one more thing. He pulled out a small, paint-stained box. Sarah made this for you before you were born. I've kept it all these years, hoping. Inside was a delicate silver locket. When I opened it, I found a tiny painted portrait. A woman with my eyes and smile, her hand resting on her pregnant belly. She painted it as a gift for your first birthday, Thomas said softly. She wanted you to always know her face, her love for you. I clasped the locket around my neck, feeling the weight of it. The weight of truth, of real family history, settle against my heart. Later that evening, sitting around Thomas's dining table, surrounded by my newfound siblings, their laughter and questions and eager acceptance, I felt something shift inside me. Margaret had tried to give me a perfect life by stealing me from my real family. But perfection built on lies could never last. Here, with Thomas and his family, my family, I found something better. Truth, acceptance, and the chance to finally know who I really was. The locket rested against my chest, Sarah's painted eyes watching over this reunion she'd never gotten to see. But somehow, I felt her presence, her love, finally where it was meant to be. Hi, I'm Hannah, a physical therapist from Denver, Colorado. 5 years ago, I was chasing my dream of building a thriving physical therapy practice in downtown Denver. The clinic was everything I'd hoped for, busy, successful, and full of meaningful connections with my patients. I'll never forget moments like when little Christopher, a 7-year-old recovering from a car accident, took his first steps after months of therapy. "Miss Harper, look, I can do it by myself now." Christopher beamed as he walked across the room, leaving his crutches behind. "That's incredible, Christopher. You're a superhero in the making," I told him, my heart swelling with pride. It was moments like these that made the long hours worth it. Then, one day, Matthew Anderson walked into my clinic. He was tall, with kind eyes and a smile that could brighten any room. A firefighter, he'd injured his shoulder during a rescue. "I have to admit," he said during our first session, "I'm terrible at following recovery instructions." "Well, Mr. Anderson, lucky for you, I'm even more stubborn than my patients," I teased, and we both laughed. From that moment, something clicked. Our love story unfolded naturally, like spring wildflowers in the Rockies. Within a year, we were planning our wedding. Everything felt perfect until Madison, Matthew's mother, entered the picture. At first, Madison seemed warm and welcoming, but during our engagement party at the Cherry Creek Country Club, I overheard her talking to Matthew's Aunt Olivia. A physical therapist? Really? I always imagined Matthew was someone more accomplished, Madison said with a pointed tone. Olivia, ever gracious, replied, "Madison, she runs a successful practice and helps people heal. What more could you want?" Despite the tension, Matthew and I married in a beautiful ceremony at Red Rocks. A year later, we were blessed with twins, Mia and Ethan. Olivia became my rock, helping me navigate motherhood while balancing my growing practice. But Madison wasn't done testing me. One day, while I was treating Mrs. Johnson, an elderly patient, I got an urgent call from the daycare. Mia had a fever. "Mrs. Johnson, I'm so sorry, but I need to go." "Go, dear," she said kindly. "Your babies need you more than my old bones do." When I arrived, I found Madison already there, holding Mia. I took the liberty of handling the situation, she said, her smile never quite reaching her eyes. After all, a working mother can't always be there. That moment hit me hard. Madison wasn't just questioning me as Matthew's wife. She was challenging my ability to be a mother while pursuing my career. Things escalated from there, like a Colorado wildfire. One morning, while I was helping a veteran adjust to his prosthetic leg, I got several urgent texts. Madison had shown up at Mia and Ethan's school, attempting to change their emergency contact information. "I just figured you're so busy with your little job," she said smugly when I confronted her. "My little job helps people walk again," I replied, keeping my composure. "And I've never missed an emergency call for my children." Later, during a charity event I organized at the clinic to offer free therapy for low-income families, Madison arrived unannounced. The waiting room was full, including Sarah, a single mom saving for her daughter's cerebral palsy treatment. "Really, Hannah? Turning your clinic into a homeless shelter?" Madison sneered. "What will your paying clients think?" Her words stung, but I stood firm. "These are families in need, Madison. Everyone deserves care." That week, 3 regular clients canceled their appointments. Madison had been calling them, suggesting they might catch something from the people I was treating. The final blow came during the twins' 5th birthday party. I planned everything carefully, a superhero theme, games, and decorations. Olivia helped, even creating beautiful memory books filled with photos and stories for each twin. But Madison arrived with extravagant gifts, a massive dollhouse for Mia and an expensive gaming console for Ethan, something I'd explicitly said was too much for his age. "I hope you don't mind," Madison said sweetly. I know you can't afford such nice things with your charitable work." Her words stung, but what hurt even more was seeing Olivia's thoughtful gifts pushed aside and forgotten. She left the party early, her hurt visible. The next morning, I got an urgent call from Denver Children's Hospital. They needed a physical therapist for a critical case. Jake, a young swimmer paralyzed in a diving accident. Despite everything happening at home, I couldn't say no. Helping Jake reminded me why I loved my profession. His determination was contagious, and during one session, he managed to move his fingers slightly for the first time. "You're a miracle worker," his mother said, tears streaming as she hugged me. That evening, I returned home to a sight that stopped me cold. Madison, standing in the living room, surrounded by scattered photos. She'd made a copy of our house key without permission. "These aren't appropriate for the family album," she said casually, holding photos of Olivia and tossing them aside. My heart pounded. "You went through our private things without asking." "And really, Hannah," she continued, ignoring my question. "Working at the hospital now too. The twins hardly see you. Don't you think you're spreading yourself a little thin?" She wasn't just meddling anymore. She was dismantling my life piece by piece. Watching her deliberately tear apart our family memories, something inside me snapped. "This is my home, Madison," I said, my voice firm. "You crossed a line." Before I could say more, Matthew walked in. His eyes moved from the photos to Madison, and for the first time, I saw recognition dawning on his face. "Mom," he said, his voice low, "what are you doing with those pictures?" For a fleeting second, Madison's polished exterior cracked, and what I saw beneath chilled me to the core. But before anyone could say another word, my phone rang. It was the hospital. Jake had taken a sudden turn for the worse. Grabbing my keys, I left behind a smoldering argument, knowing my patient needed me more than anything right now. The drive to the hospital was a blur. My mind raced with everything Madison had done, but I forced myself to focus. When I arrived, I found Jake gasping for breath, his monitor blaring in distress. "The spasm started suddenly," a nurse explained. "We can't get him stabilized." Years of experience kicked in, recognizing the signs of autonomic dysreflexia, a life-threatening complication in spinal cord injuries. I worked quickly to reposition Jake and adjust his treatment. Slowly, his vitals stabilized. "You saved my boy's life," his mother whispered, hugging me tightly. By the time I returned home, it was late. The house was quiet, the twins asleep upstairs. I found Matthew sitting in the darkened living room, staring into the distance. "I talked to Nancy today," he said quietly. Nancy was his cousin from Seattle. Someone Madison had distanced him from years ago. She told me some things about Mom's past. Matthew's voice trembled as he recounted what Nancy had shared. Madison had driven away his first father by spreading malicious rumors, then manipulated Matthew's father into severing ties with his family. Each time, she played the victim while systematically isolating everyone around her. "She's doing it again, isn't she?" he asked, his voice breaking. Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. It was Olivia. She was crying. "Hannah, you need to see this," she said, her voice shaking. Olivia had discovered something shocking: emails on Madison's forgotten tablet. They were messages to my clients, canceling appointments under false pretenses. There were emails to the school board questioning my parenting and even letters to Child Protective Services, making baseless claims about Olivia's mental health. The next morning, I arrived at my clinic to find chaos. Reporters crowded the entrance. Madison had contacted the local news, claiming my charity work was putting my regular patients at risk. "Miss Harper," one reporter called out, a microphone thrust toward me, "is it true you're endangering patients by mixing populations?" Just as the reporters pressed in, Jake's mother stepped forward, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "That woman saved my son's life last night. She's the most dedicated therapist we've ever known." Her words silenced the crowd momentarily, but then others joined in. Sarah, the single mom, spoke with tears in her eyes. "Hannah gave my daughter hope when we had none. She taught her to walk again, something I thought I'd never see." Mr. Rodriguez, the veteran I'd worked with, stepped forward and demonstrated his new walking skills with his prosthetic leg. "Because of Hannah, I can stand tall again." But the biggest surprise came when Mia's teacher arrived, holding an envelope. "Mrs. Anderson," she said, her voice urgent, "you need to see this." Inside was security footage from the twins' school. The video showed Madison trying to pick up Mia and Ethan without authorization, whispering to them that I didn't want them anymore. Matthew watched the video in stunned silence, his face turning pale. "I've been so blind," he whispered. Before we could process it all, we heard sirens wailing. Someone had called in a false emergency at Olivia's house, claiming she was a danger to herself and others. We rushed over, only to find Olivia shaken but unharmed, explaining the situation to the police. Standing there, watching the fallout from Madison's schemes, I realized this wasn't just about family drama anymore. Her actions were escalating and putting lives in danger. But Madison wasn't done yet. She played her final, desperate card, filing for emergency custody of the twins, accusing me of neglecting them because of my work. The courtroom at the Denver Justice Center was packed on the day of the hearing. Jake arrived with his family, Sarah brought her daughter proudly wobbling on her new walker, and dozens of patients and colleagues filled the gallery. "My wife has done nothing but care for our children and this community," Matthew began, but he was interrupted by an unexpected arrival. Nancy, his cousin from Seattle, stepped forward holding a thick folder. "Your Honor," she said, "I have evidence." She laid out Madison's history, years of systematically isolating and destroying families across 3 states. One by one, other victims came forward. Former daughters-in-law, estranged family members, all with eerily similar stories. Then came the financial records. Madison had been quietly siphoning funds from Matthew's trusts, set up by his late father, for years. The judge's expression grew stern as she reviewed the evidence. "Mrs. Anderson," she said, "these are serious allegations." Suddenly, Mia's small voice rang out in the courtroom. "Grandma told us Mommy didn't love us anymore. But that's not true. Mommy helps people walk again. Like she helped me when I fell off my bike." Ethan chimed in, his little voice defiant. "And she reads us stories every night, even when she's tired from helping people." Matthew stood then, his voice breaking. "Your Honor, I've been wrong. My mother needs help. My wife is an incredible mother, a remarkable professional, and the love of my life." The judge's ruling was swift. Madison was ordered to stay away from us, pending a criminal investigation for financial fraud and false reporting. In the months that followed, life began to heal. My clinic expanded, opening a new wing dedicated to low-income patients, funded by community donations. Jake started volunteering, inspiring others with his resilience. And at home, Matthew and I focus on rebuilding, through counseling, honesty, and putting our children's happiness first. So, what would you do if someone tried to destroy your career while pretending to care about your family? Would you stand strong like I did, or would you handle it differently? Share your thoughts below. I'd love to hear your perspective. Hey everyone, I'm Natalie, a 28-year-old fitness trainer. My journey hasn't been easy, but standing here with the keys to my brand new black sedan in hand, I can't stop smiling. It's a car I've dreamed about for years, and finally, it's mine. After a workout session, one of my clients, Elizabeth, approaches me. "Wow, Natalie, is that your new ride?" Her eyes widen with excitement. I nod, still grinning. "Yep, just picked it up yesterday. Took a lot of extra shifts and saving, but it was worth it." Elizabeth gives me a high five. "That's amazing. You're such an inspiration, always working hard and reaching your goals." As I bask in this moment of pride, my phone buzzes. It's a text from my mom. "Sophie, we need to talk about your sister's situation. Family dinner tonight. No excuses." I sigh, my mood deflating a little. Don't get me wrong, I love my family, but our relationships are complicated. My mom has always been manipulative, my dad enables her behavior, and my sister Hazel, she's the epitome of entitlement. Later that evening, I reluctantly head to my parents' house. The moment I step inside, I feel the tension. There she is, Miss Independent, Mom says, her tone dripping with both pride and resentment. "Nice of you to grace us with your presence, Natalie." I force a smile and sit down. During dinner, the conversation inevitably turns to money. Hazel whines about her recent job loss, conveniently omitting the fact she was fired for constantly showing up late. "It's just so unfair," Hazel complains. "They didn't even give me a chance to explain." I bite my tongue, remembering the countless times I've covered for her or lent her money she never repaid. Then, as expected, my mom chimes in. "Well, maybe your sister can help you out, Natalie. You're doing so well with your training business. Surely you can spare some cash." I take a deep breath. I'm sorry, but no. I've worked hard for what I have, and I need to prioritize my own financial stability. The table falls silent. My dad clears his throat uncomfortably while Mom's eyes narrow. That's very selfish of you, Natalie. Family should always come first. I stand my ground. It's not selfish to have boundaries, Mom. I love you all, but I can't keep bailing everyone out. You need to learn to manage your own finances. A few weeks later, I'm at the gym, finishing up with a client when my phone starts buzzing nonstop. It's Hazel. I ignore it at first, but after the fifth call, I finally pick up. What is it, Hazel? I ask, trying to keep the irritation out of my voice. I lost my job, she wails. They fired me for no reason. I take a deep breath. I'm sorry to hear that. What happened? Oh, typical corporate BS. They said I was unreliable or whatever. Can you believe it? Anyway, I need to borrow your car for job hunting. I almost dropped my phone. Wait, what? No, Hazel. I need my car for work. How would I get to my clients? She scoffs. Come on, Natalie. You can take an Uber or something. This is important. I'm sorry, but no, my car isn't up for borrowing. I need it. The line goes dead. I know this isn't over. Sure enough, later that week, I get a text from Mom. Family dinner tonight. No excuses. As soon as I walk into my parents' house, I feel the tension thick in the air. Mom's eyes are narrowed, Dad looks uncomfortable, and Hazel is smirking. Sit down, Natalie, Mom says, her voice cold. We need to talk about your selfishness. I blink, confused. Excuse me? Dad clears his throat. Your sister needs help, kiddo. We think you should let her use your car. I can't believe what I'm hearing. Are you serious? I already told Hazel no. I need my car for work. Mom slams her hand on the table. Don't you care about your family at all? Hazel needs this. And what about what I need? I shoot back. I worked hard for that car. It's mine. Hazel pipes up, her voice dripping with mockery. You're just showing off. You don't really need it. You're so selfish, Natalie. I stand up, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. I'm not being selfish. I'm setting boundaries. I love you all, but I won't let you take advantage of me. What happens next feels like slow motion. Dad stands up, his face red with anger. Before I can react, his hand connects with my cheek in a sharp slap. The room falls silent. I touch my stinging cheek, shocked and numb. In the days that follow, my phone floods with messages from extended family and even some friends. Mom and Hazel have clearly been busy spreading their version of events. How could you abandon your family like that, Natalie? I thought you were better than this. Your poor sister needs help and you're being so selfish. I ignore most of them. I can't help feeling hurt and betrayed. How did standing up for myself make me the bad guy? My phone rings. It's my cousin Rayan, someone I've always been close to. Hey Natalie, I heard what happened. Are you okay? I take a shaky breath. Not really, Rayan. I can't believe they're turning everyone against me. He sighs. I'm sorry you're going through this. For what it's worth, I think you're doing the right thing. Don't let them manipulate you. His words offer some comfort, but I know I need more help. I start seeing a therapist, Dr. Martinez, and begin weekly sessions. It's hard at first, but slowly I begin to see things more clearly. One afternoon, as I leave therapy, my phone buzzes. It's a call from my bank. Miss Natalie, we've noticed some unusual activity on your account. There have been attempts to open new credit cards in your name. My heart sinks. I freeze, remembering all the times my parents had access to my personal information. Oh no, I whisper. I hire a private investigator named Mike to look into it. A week later, he confirms my worst fears. I'm sorry, Natalie. Your parents have been using your identity to open credit cards and take out loans. I feel sick. How could they do this to me? Just when I think things can't get worse, I get a frantic call from Hazel. Natalie, you have to help me, she cries. I'm in trouble at work. They're accusing me of embezzlement. I sigh. Hazel, what did you do? It's not what you think. I just borrowed some money. I was going to pay it back. Before I can respond, my mom calls. Natalie, your sister needs your help. You need to give her the money to pay back what she took. I can't believe what I'm hearing. Absolutely not. This is Hazel's mess. She needs to face the consequences. How dare you? Mom shrieks. After everything we've done for you. I laugh bitterly. You mean like stealing my identity? Yeah, I know about that. There's a long pause before my dad's voice comes on the line. Now, kiddo, let's not be hasty. We're family. We can work this out. No, I say firmly, we can't. If you don't leave me alone, I'll go to the police with everything I know. Mom's voice turned sickly sweet. Natalie, sweetie, think about what you're saying. You wouldn't want to tear this family apart, would you? I end the call, feeling drained but determined. The next day, my best friend Kate came over. I told her everything. Natalie, this is insane, she exclaimed. We need to protect you. Kate had an idea. We set up hidden cameras around my apartment and car. If they try anything, we'll have proof, she said, giving me a reassuring hug. A few days later, while at work, I got an alert on my phone. The camera had detected movement near my car. I pulled up the live feed and my blood ran cold. There were my parents trying to break into it. We'll take it while she's at work, I heard my dad say. She won't be able to prove anything. Mom nodded. It's for Hazel. Natalie owes us this much. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Kate, watching with me, put her hand on my shoulder. Natalie, you have to call the police. Hands shaking, I nodded and dialed. As I waited for the police, a strange mix of sadness and relief washed over me. This was it, there was no going back now. But for the first time in a long while, I felt like I was taking control of my life. They can't hurt me anymore, I whispered, watching the police car pull up on the camera feed. Word spread quickly about what my parents and Hazel had done. Their social circle shrank, and I heard through the grapevine that they were struggling financially now that they couldn't rely on manipulating others. A month later, I got a call from a detective. Miss Natalie, I wanted to inform you that your sister Hazel has been arrested for embezzlement. I felt a pang of sadness but knew it was for the best. Thank you for letting me know, I replied softly. The detective continued, also, we're moving forward with charges against your parents for identity theft. They're facing potential jail time. After I hung up, I sat in silence, processing everything. It was over, but in many ways, the journey was just beginning. I threw myself into my work, expanding my fitness business. I started offering online classes and even opened a small studio. My client base grew, and I found myself busier than ever. One evening, as I was locking up the studio, a new client, Mark, approached me. Natalie, I just wanted to say thanks. Your classes have really changed my life. I smiled, warmth filling my chest. That means a lot, Mark. Thank you. As time passed, I realized I was building a new kind of family. My clients became friends, and my friends became family. We had potlucks, game nights, and weekend hikes. One night, while cleaning up after a gathering, Kate pulled me aside. Natalie, I'm so proud of you. Look at everything you've accomplished. I nodded, a deep sense of peace settling over me. It wasn't easy, but I finally feel free. I've learned that family isn't just about blood. It's about the people who support you, love you, and respect your boundaries. The story of Natalie's triumph over her toxic family comes to an end. But now, I have a question for you. If you were in Natalie's shoes, would you have pressed charges against your parents and sister, or tried to give them one last chance? My name is Sophia. I'm 32, and, until recently, I thought I was living the dream, a cozy suburban life with my husband, Matthew. Our whirlwind romance had been the stuff of fairy tales. I still remember our first date as if it were yesterday. You're different from anyone I've ever met, Matthew said, his eyes sparkling with sincerity. Well, I hope that's a good thing, I replied, blushing. Fast forward 3 years, and we were happily married, settled into our little slice of paradise. Everything seemed perfect, until it wasn't. It started with small things, feeling tired all the time, dizzy spells hitting me out of nowhere. At first, I brushed it off. Probably just stress, I told Matthew. But then I began losing weight, and not in a good way. My clothes hung off me like they belonged to someone else. I could see the concern etched on Matthew's face. Babe, maybe we should see a doctor, he suggested one morning as I struggled to get out of bed. Too exhausted to argue, I nodded. What followed was a frustrating parade of doctor's appointments. Each visit left me with the same empty reassurance. Mrs. Thompson, all your tests are normal. Matthew was by my side through every step, holding my hand and offering comforting words. We'll figure this out, he said. Then came dinner at Matthew's parents' house, a gathering I had been dreading. Harper, his picture-perfect mother, greeted us at the door, her scrutinizing eyes scanning me. "Sophia, dear," she cooed, "you're looking thin." "Just under the weather," I replied with a forced smile. George, Matthew's father, barely glanced up from his phone. "Hope it's nothing serious," he muttered. Amelia, Matthew's younger sister, was the only one who seemed genuinely concerned. "Have you seen a specialist?" she asked over dessert. I nodded, pushing food around my plate. "Several. But no one can figure it out." That's when I noticed it, a fleeting glance between Matthew and his family. The atmosphere shifted, tension thick and oppressive. Harper's saccharine voice broke the silence. "I'm sure it's nothing a little diet and exercise can't fix," she chirped. "Have you tried yoga, dear?" I bit my tongue, resisting the urge to snap back. Matthew squeezed my hand under the table, but it no longer felt reassuring. On the drive home, I stared out the window, unable to shake the feeling that something was wrong. "You okay?" Matthew asked, his eyes fixed on the road. "Just tired," I lied. The days dragged on, and my health continued to decline. I spent most of my time in bed, the walls of our home feeling more like a prison. Matthew's absences grew longer and more frequent. "Work's running late," he'd say, or "Mom needs help with something." Too drained to argue, I let it slide. One afternoon, Harper showed up unannounced, her presence suffocating. "Sophia, dear," she said, her tone sweet yet cutting, "don't you think it's time to pull yourself together?" "Excuse me?" I asked, stunned. "Well," she continued, examining her manicure, "this illness of yours. It seems a bit convenient, doesn't it?" My jaw dropped. "Are you suggesting I'm faking it?" Harper shrugged, a sly smile playing on her lips. "If the shoe fits." After she left, I lay in bed fuming. Then I heard Matthew downstairs, his voice low and angry. "I can't keep doing this," he hissed. "She's always sick. It's becoming such a burden." My heart shattered. Was I nothing more than a burden now? That evening, Hannah, my kind neighbor, knocked on my door. "I thought you could use some company," she said, holding up a bag of groceries. Hannah quickly became my lifeline, helping with errands and keeping me company. One day, she brought up her brother. "Anthony's a toxicologist," she said. "Maybe he could take a look at your case." Dr. Anthony Chen was unlike any doctor I'd met. He listened intently, his kind eyes serious. "Sophia," he said after reviewing my symptoms, "I'd like to run some comprehensive tests. I have a suspicion." Days later, his office called with the results. Hannah drove me there, holding my hand as I sat on edge. When Dr. Chen walked in, his face was grim. "Sophia," he began, "your tests show high levels of arsenic in your system." The words didn't register at first. "Arsenic? But how?" Dr. Chen's voice softened. "It appears you've been systematically poisoned." The floor seemed to vanish beneath me. Poisoned? By who? Suddenly, it all clicked. The tension at family dinners, Matthew's growing distance, his family's behavior, the illness that had stolen my life. The perfect husband, the perfect life. It had all been a lie. As Hannah hugged me, trying to offer comfort, I felt something shift inside. The shock and pain were still there, but beneath them, a spark of anger ignited. Someone had done this to me, and I wasn't going to sit idly by anymore. The truth hit me like a ton of bricks. I had to fight back. With newfound determination, I began searching the house while Matthew was away. "There's got to be something," I muttered, rifling through drawers and cabinets. My search led me to his workshop in the garage. Hidden behind old paint cans, I found it, a stash of arsenic-based pesticides. My hands shook as I picked up one of the bottles. This can't be happening. I called Hannah, my voice trembling. "I need your help." Together we set up hidden cameras around the house. Hannah showed me how to access the feeds on my phone. "Are you sure about this?" she asked, worry etched on her face. I nodded, grimly resolute. "I need to know the truth." Days passed as I watched Matthew's every move. Then, one evening, I saw it. He was in the kitchen, carefully measuring something from a small vial into my evening tea. My heart sank. My world shattered. That night, I confronted him, my phone secretly recording in my pocket. "Matthew," I began, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. "What have you been putting in my food?" He froze, his eyes wide. "What are you talking about?" "Don't lie to me," I said firmly. I know about the arsenic. His face crumpled, and he fell to his knees, sobbing. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. They made me do it. Who? Your family? I spat, disgusted. So you decided to poison me. It wasn't supposed to be like this, he blubbered. We were just going to make you look unstable. Then I'd divorce you, and no one would question it. I took a step back, repulsed. You're all monsters. Grabbing my pre-packed bag, I fled to Hannah's house. She hugged me tightly as I broke down. We've got the evidence now, she reassured me. They can't hurt you anymore. But Matthew's family wasn't done. The next day, my phone blew up with messages. Mutual friends bombarded me with screenshots of social media posts. Matthew's family had launched a full-scale smear campaign. Sophia has always been unstable, Harper wrote in a widely shared post. We tried to help her, but she refused treatment and ran away. We're all still worried. I felt like I was going to be sick. How can they do this? They won't get away with it, Hannah said fiercely, squeezing my hand. We'll fight back. We have the truth on our side. My resolve hardened. They messed with the wrong woman. Months passed as I slowly began to rebuild my life. Hannah's spare room became my sanctuary, a place to heal. With the fog of illness lifting, I discovered a strength I never knew I had. You're looking better every day, Hannah remarked one morning. I smiled, the feeling genuine for the first time in ages. I feel better. I feel like me again. With my newfound energy, I sought out opportunities to move forward. At the local community center, I found purpose. They were hiring, and during my interview, something clicked. We'd love to have you on board, the director said, shaking my hand. Your experience could really help our abuse survivors. It felt right, using my pain to help others. There was still unfinished business. One evening, Dr. Chen arrived at Hannah's house, a determined look in his eyes. Sophia, I've been thinking, he began. That pesticide Matthew used, it's illegal. If George's company has been using it. I caught on quickly. We could report them to the EPA. The anonymous tip set off a domino effect. Within weeks, the news broke of a massive investigation into George's company. Environmental violations on an unprecedented scale, the newscaster reported. CEO George Thompson has been arrested. Hannah and I sat in stunned silence as the broadcast detailed the company's downfall. Frozen assets, ruined reputations, and mounting legal charges. They're finally getting what they deserve, Hannah said softly. I nodded, a mix of emotions swirling inside me, relief, closure, and something I couldn't quite name. As days passed, more news trickled in. Matthew, now broke and desperate, had turned to gambling. He owes money to some dangerous people, a mutual friend confided. It's not looking good. Then came word about Harper. A stress-induced stroke had landed her in the hospital. When I heard the news, I thought I'd feel vindicated. Instead, I felt nothing. They were reaping what they had sown, and for once, I didn't have to lift a finger. One day, my phone buzzed with an unexpected name, Amelia. Sophia. Her voice cracked on the other end. I'm so sorry. I had no idea what they were doing. Can we talk? I took a deep breath, steadying myself. Amelia, I appreciate the apology, but I can't let any of you back into my life. I hope you understand. There was a pause. I do, she said quietly. Take care, Sophia. A week later, the final blow came. Matthew had been hospitalized after a random attack. No one believed it was random. Probably those loan sharks, Hannah mused. Karma's a well, you know. I replied with a faint nod. The chapter of my life with Matthew and his family was finally closed. A year later, I stood before a group of women at the domestic abuse shelter, my voice steady and strong. I know it feels hopeless now, I said, meeting their eyes. But you're stronger than you know. You can rebuild. You can thrive. As I spoke, I saw flickers of hope in their faces, some tearful, others determined. It hit me then. The Sophia who had lived in that perfect illusion was gone. In her place stood someone stronger, wiser, and fiercely committed to helping others find their way out of the darkness. Remember, I said, my voice filled with conviction, your story doesn't end with them. It begins when you choose yourself. As the session ended, the women filed out. Some paused to hug me, others whispered their thanks. A sense of peace washed over me. The road had been long and painful, but I had made it. Now I was helping others find their way too. Now I ask you, if you were in Sophia's position, would you have accepted Amelia's apology and attempt at reconciliation? Or do you think Sophia made the right choice in cutting off all contact with Matthew's family, even those who claimed ignorance?